Hey, how you doing? This is Tom, and this is Tom's Radio Room, and we're going to do something a little different today, something I've been trying to do for months. And Rob and I tried this several months ago, and neither one of us had a computer that could keep up with it. But it looks like today we both got a computer that will hang in there in the Hangout, and we can do a Hangout together. And I've got Rob here, and I'm going to try to control whose image is in the big part of the screen. Otherwise, if you let Hangout control it and people start talking at the same time, the screens flip back and forth and drive you nuts. So I'm going to switch to Rob right now and let him introduce himself.
Okay, I guess I don't know if excuse me, guys. I can't see what you can see, Tom, but anyway, I'm Rob. I have the 741 channel, and I do kind of a mix of repair videos and radio videos and ham radio stuff. And I've been following Tom's videos for a long time, and we've been kind of, chatting back and forth here over emails and whatnot. And we finally decided to put together kind of a joint live stream here just to see how things would go. And here we are. So thanks for stopping by.
Okay. Like I say almost every time when I do a Hangout, my Hangouts aren't, I don't, if I tried to schedule a Hangout, I probably just wouldn't do them. So I kind of do Hangouts as something comes up. Like, for instance, if I'm listening to my shortwave radio and all of a sudden the bands are busy, I'll try to do a Hangout. Now, typically what happens by the time I get it set up, the band's already changed. So maybe Rob and I can come up with a mutual schedule that we could do a Hangout maybe on a certain day, or at least maybe we can announce it in advance, like maybe 4 hours in advance or something like that. But Rob is very busy. He's still working full time. I'm retired, but I've got bazillion hobbies. Plus I'm, an old fart. I have to take a nap about 3 times a day. So even though I'm pretty flexible, I'm not always available for a Hangout. So anyway, what we're going to try to do in this one, when we're just learning, kind of see how all these things work. I'm going to try to do a screen share that might blow up. So keep that in mind. Any minute, this whole Hangout thing might crash. So what we're going to talk about today briefly and just kind of discuss, and Rob is going to monitor the chat. Because
I'm in there now, Tom. I don't see anybody in yet, but I do have it up over there on my other computer.
Okay, very good, because he's got a little laptop right beside him so he can see it. The problem with this old Hangout format is for the person that's broadcasting, the chat room doesn't work. So what I have to do if I'm going to use this format is I have to set up a different computer to monitor, just like Rob's doing right there, except my computer is way over there on the other side of the room, so I have to zip back and forth, and that doesn't work very well. So Rob's going to take over the chat room and monitor any questions you might have as we go on. Again, this is kind of unscheduled. No, not kind of unscheduled. It's unscheduled. It's unscheduled. And so you may have to view this after the fact, but hopefully we'll have some good information, and we're going to talk about antennas in general, just in general antennas, the kind we use, the kind we've experienced, and whatever. So I'm going to start off by showing you, and I'll try to show you some antennas that I'm using right now, and I'll try to do a screen share. We'll see what happens or it crashes. Okay, and then we get that mirror effect first, which I'll close, and then I'll stop the sharing, and then I'll go to, now, Rob, I can hear you. I can't see you now. Are you seeing my screen?
Yeah, I can see. Well, I see you sitting there. I don't see any images or anything. Just you at your desk.
Well, that's not good. That didn't work. Let me try something. Stand by.
Okay.
Yeah, that ain't working. All right, that did not work. Now, that normally works when I'm by myself. Let me go back to the other screen. And I don't know why that didn't work, Rob.
Yeah, I'm not sure either. Well, maybe because you've got me in there and it's just screwing things up.
I don't know. Doesn't really matter. We're just trying to get this to work. So anyway, what I was going to show you is my three main antennas that I use. Now I have probably 20 antennas up, but I only use.
Oh, wow.
And the reason I got so many is because I test them. And unfortunately, there's supposed to be temporary setups for my test, and then I'm supposed to take them down. I never take them down.
Well, hey, you've got them there if you need them.
Yeah. But right now, and there's a bunch of variables when you're talking about antennas. There's the location, there's the height and everything. But my antenna that's working the best on HF right now is my MFJ vertical antenna. And there's really nothing special about that antenna. It basically is just a piece of wire, and they provide a telescopic fiberglass pole, which extends 31 feet in the air, and you attach that wire to the tip of that and just run it down the pole. And then they also include a matching box to match the impedance of that high impedance wire to your low impedance radio. So it's matching like 300 ohms to 50 ohms, which is what your radio typically wants. And it worked perfect. Now, maybe it's reason it's so good is because the tip of it is the highest antenna I have, which is 31 feet.
Oh, could be.
And then anything else, I think my G5RV is only at 20 feet.
Wow. So do you use that for transmitting or just receiving?
Just receiving. It is built for transmitting. I think it's good for 300 watts. Of course, you would want to, if it's cut for 40 meters. So,
okay.
Go ahead.
No, I just said okay.
So if you wanted to use it on a different frequency, you'd have to use an antenna matching device, antenna tuner. So again, Rob, I don't know if it's purely the height or the fact it's vertical versus horizontal.
Yeah, I mean, it could be, I guess, because it's vertical, it's more of I guess you'd call it a DX antenna. I've experimented with verticals a little bit. My father-in-law is actually a ham, and he put up a vertical in his yard because he didn't have a ton of room. And we found that it worked great for DX. In fact, we got done putting it up on Thanksgiving Day 2 years ago. And we went in while the ladies were cooking the turkeys and stuff. And we made our first contact with Russia. But he couldn't hear anybody locally. And I guess that has to do with sort of the angle of radiation and whatnot. Now on receive, I didn't think it mattered as much, but maybe it does.
Well, like I say, from my limited knowledge, the horizontal antennas are kind of directional. So,
yeah, that's true too.
So I've got my G5RV, it's facing, as far as the line of the wire, it's facing northeast, southwest.
Okay.
And ideally, if I wanted to get, say, China or Europe or Africa, I'd probably want to have it directly north so that perpendicular is those two broadcasts. That's my understanding. What about you, Rob?
Yeah, you want to have the ends of the wire, excuse me, the ends of the wire, there's going to be a lobe there, or a null rather. So you want to have it, like you said, perpendicular to the direction that you're trying to contact. So for example, I have a fan dipole that I use as my primary antenna with legs cut for 40 and 80. And I've got it faced more or less so that the ends of the wire are north-south and the wire, the broad side of the wire faces east-west so that I can get into Europe with it and the west coast of the United States being, you know, in the northeast part of the country.
So are those so is that the main antenna you use?
That's my main HF antenna. Like I said, it's just a fan dipole, nothing fancy. And it's only up about, I don't know, 15 feet or so in my side yard in the trees. But it seems to work great for me. I spend a little bit of time on 80 meters with my local radio club. We have a rag chew sort of, I don't know if you want to call it a net, but a rag chew group that gets on. So I use it in sort of what they would call the NVIS mode, near vertical incident skywave. I think that's what that stands for. So on 80 meters, that works great because it shoots the signal sort of straight up and kind of blankets the area. And it works great there. But I've used it, I can tune it all the way from 80 all the way up to 6 meters. And I've gotten into Europe with it on 20 meters and things like that. And receiving, it's great. That's the antenna that I use for all my shortwave SDR play videos. That's the one that I use most of the time. And it seems to work good.
Yeah, my problem is I have lots of trees in my yard, and they're close. The yard itself is not that big, and so I'm very restricted about anything that's a horizontal type antenna. So for instance, my G5RV, I've got it mounted to the peak of my second story, and then it goes down in a V shape, like an inverted V shape down to the front yard, and then the other leg goes to the backyard. So that consequently, it's 102 feet long. That's the only way I can stretch it out, the 102 feet.
Interesting. So do you find that you have any issues with receiving noise from inside your house from appliances or, you know, little wall warts or things like that? Do you have any issue with that?
Unbelievable. Unbelievable. If I try to demonstrate a portable shortwave radio or an AM radio in my office, which is where I'm at now, and I have probably 6 or 8 computers on all the time. I have many more in here, but they're not on most of the time. I have half a dozen tablets on. I have a router. I have a switch. I have a cable box. I got all that junk working all the time, and I cannot pick up anything. I have to use an external antenna with good shielded cable to anything in this room.
So, but with the G5RV right above the house, it doesn't pick up the noise from all that stuff?
Not that I know. You know, it's all relative. It's always been that way, so I don't know what it would be like if it was away from the house.
Oh, I see.
But it's nothing compared to trying to listen to. Like, I've got my Grundig 750 here on my desk, and I cannot use that radio without an external antenna.
Oh, okay. I see.
Even though it's a good radio and it's good at noise rejection, it just gets hammered.
Just a quick diversion here. I'm looking in the chat room, and we've got Nick Bad in there, and he says, "Love the show, Tom."
Oh, well, hi, Nick. Good.
So far, he's the only one in there.
Okay. Well, I thank Nick for stopping by and putting something in the chat. I think Nick stops by quite often.
Okay.
And the other thing about that reminds me of something. The other thing about scheduling a hangout is it's difficult to schedule it at a time that's good for everyone.
Yeah, that's true. That's true, especially when you've got an audience that could potentially be coming from all over the world.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so that's another reason I don't worry about, when to schedule it, because A good time for people in the United States is a bad time for people in Asia because we're 12 hours different.
Yeah, same here. I don't really schedule any live streams when I do them. It's just if I'm in the mood, or like you said earlier, if something interesting is going on, just set it up and go, and people will show up if they can, and if not, they'll catch it later.
Now, the other thing about my antennas, of which, like I said, I've got a lot of them still set up. They shouldn't be, but they're still set up. And another problem I have about setting up antennas is I can no longer get on the roof to set them up.
Oh, okay.
So I have to get my neighbor across the street when he's not busy to put them up for me. And so consequently, he doesn't mind so much putting them up, but he doesn't particularly have the time to help me take them down.
Yeah, that's understandable.
Now, I've kind of solved that problem because I realize it is a problem. And what we've done is we've set up some poles, about 20-foot poles, 15-foot poles, and we've mounted a pulley at the top.
Oh, okay.
And so I can raise and lower the antennas. And I have on the rope, I have a hook, such as what's used on a boat, for instance. And I can clip on a different antenna, hoist it up, do the testing, and then lower it back down and put a different one.
Okay, that's interesting. That's a nice setup. And I actually did something similar with my my dipole that's up in the trees, just simply because it used to come down a lot. I live in New England where we get snowstorms and windstorms and things. And because it's in the trees, it would come down once or twice a year, and I'd have to go put it back up. And I don't have it over the branches of the trees. I have it in some hooks and things. So I'd have to get the ladder out and climb up and do it that way. So I don't have any pulleys on mine, but what I did is I have eye hooks in the trees now. And the rope that holds the antenna up just goes around the eye hook and goes straight down the trunk of the tree to the bottom, or I have another hook and I have the rope tied off. So what that does is it allows the antenna to kind of flex a little bit in the wind and as the trees move and things like that. And so far it's been up there for almost 3 years and hasn't come down again. But what it also does is it allows me to raise and lower the antenna, just like you said, Tom. I untie the rope at the bottom and I can just let it go through the hook, and I can bring it down if I need to, take a look at it or something like that. So that's worked out well for me.
Yes. Something came to mind when you mentioned that. Something that I suggest people do, unfortunately I don't do it because I haven't been able to find any, is to put some springs on the end of the antenna.
Oh, that's a good idea too.
There's a little give to the antenna, so there's not a high tension on it that will cause it to snap and wind and stuff like that.
That's a good idea too. Let me take a quick look in the chat room here, Tom. We'll see if anybody else is in. Okay. Let's see. We've got the Radio Shop has stopped in, and Scott Collier, and let's see, Mags71 says hi from South Australia.
There you go.
Hope the maritime traffic is still working okay. I think that's what that says. Yeah. Oh, marine traffic is still working okay.
All righty. Yeah, see, that's the thing is it's probably 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock over there. So, it's a good time for him.
Yeah, thanks for stopping in.
Yes. I'm here with Rob, and his YouTube channel is 741, and we're talking about antennas, just kind of in general. We hope we can do some more of these hangouts and maybe schedule them a little bit more in advance. So the other antenna type that I that I use is for UHF and VHF. I use just a simple disc cone antenna.
Oh, okay.
And because typically a disc cone antenna will tune, a broad band of frequencies from 30 megahertz to 1 gigahertz, not being great on any frequency, but it covers them all. That's the why I use a discone.
That's a good antenna to have. For VHF UHF here, I don't have anything quite so ideal. What I'm running is for 6 meters. I actually picked up this big 5-element Yagi that I really don't need, but I got it almost for free at a ham fest. It needed a little bit of work when I got it, but I got it all put together, and I have it up on the roof of my house, and it's only about 3 feet off the top of the roof because it's so big, and I'm afraid it'll rip the mast right off the side of the house. But I use that, and it's not an ideal antenna for this, but my radio club, there's a few guys that rag chew on 6, so I use it for that. But I've also done a little bit of 6 meter QRP work with that, so transmitting less than 5 watts on 6, and I've done a little grid square chasing, not a ton, but that antenna works great for that. And again, I wouldn't have an antenna like that if I hadn't got it essentially for free. And then I also have a 2 meter antenna, vertical antenna, for kind of working the local repeaters and stuff, although I'm not big on the repeaters or 2 meters. There's a few guys in the local radio club that's all they have available to them. So I will use that from time to time. So depending on what I'm doing for VHF work, I'll use either of those 2 antennas. I'll also add that I'm in the hills here, so anything above 150 megahertz or so gets a little bit tough for me in this area, like say the 440 ham band. I just can't really use it here. There's a few repeaters around, but with all the hills and stuff, it sort of tends to block the signal because that gets line of sight and whatnot. In fact, even our EMS people around here are still on VHF and things like that because it works better in the hills. But that's what I'm running for VHF.
Yeah, you brought up a good point in that VHF and UHF are basically line of sight. If your antenna can't see the signal, it's probably not going to receive it. And so at least for me, even though I live in Florida, there's no hills in Florida, that's what they say. Best I can do is maybe 20 miles. That's about the best I can do on VHF and UHF.
Oh, interesting. I thought it would be a little better down there.
No, it's not really. So to me, it's very important to get an antenna as high as possible. So I've got my discone. I got one of my discones. I have about 5 up. I have one of my discones at 30 feet, and it of course does the best. Yeah,
that's good. The highest antenna I have is the 2 meter. Well, no, actually I have a 10 meter antenna that's higher, but the 2 meter antenna is only up about 20 feet here. And like I said, there's a hill to my west that kind of blocks all the signals, and that's where all the activity is. I'm in the northeast part of Connecticut, and for those of you who aren't familiar with the geography of Connecticut, most of the population is in the center of the state. There's a river valley that runs right through the middle of the state, north to south. So all the good activity in terms of VHF, UHF is kind of down there, clustered in that sort of urban area. But I'm in the rural area to the east of that and behind the hills, so I can't hear any of it, even though I'm only 15 miles away.
Yeah. To divert a little bit, I'm looking at your picture and I'm seeing all those nice radios there behind you. And I have a question for you.
Sure.
Since you also have a very nice SDR.
Yes.
As far as receive on, say, HF, does the SDR do a better job than those expensive radios there behind you?
That's a good question, and one that I've been intending to make a sort of, I don't want to say scientific, but sort of a controlled video about one of these days, where I want to this Elecraft that's over here is supposed to have a high-end receiver in it. Now, before I answer the question, I will mention that I did not buy this radio. I won it in a raffle, so I was very lucky to have it. But it has an excellent receiver in it, and I would like to compare it to the SDR. Now, in sort of a more controlled fashion. But to answer your question in a sort of a long-winded manner, comparing it just casually against the SDR, I don't notice much of a difference, to be honest with you. But again, that's tuning the bands, looking for strong signals and things like that. And in fact, I'd have to say that because you can control the SDR with the software and you have so many things to play with, the SDR is just a little bit better just because you have that control, even though this receiver is probably technically better. But someday I need to make a video and we need to go through all that and see what happens.
Yeah, that would be a great video, because I've found myself, as far as listening, I'm kind of switched over to SDRs. They typically, compared to my radios, and of course I don't have real nice radios like you do, but they have a noticeable better reception. And I only have, well, I have many SDRs, but the only good one I have is the SDR Play, and it's the one. Rob has the Cadillac, he has the 2.
Yeah, I've got the newest one. SDR Play was kind enough to send me one out of the blue. Well, not so, they contacted me first and asked me if they sent me one, if I'd make some videos on it, and of course I agreed for that, because that's a great radio here. I don't know if it's out of the shot right now, but for those of you that know SDRs, and if you're following Tom, you probably do. This is the RSP Duo. This has the dual receiver and all the up-to-date architecture and things. So this is a great radio. I've made several videos on this. And like I said, just casual listening, I don't notice much difference between the SDR Play and, a big high-end radio like this. Now, of course, this one transmits. It only transmits 10 watts, but it does transmit. So there's a difference there. But the SDR Play is orders of magnitude less expensive than a radio like, something like this, or even this, which is 10 or 12 years old now.
What is the bandwidth on the Duo?
The Duo, I believe you can, if you have the hardware, I think it can go up to 8 or 10 megahertz on each receiver. But you got to have a decent computer to kind of receive that whole bandwidth at once.
Right.
Let me check the chat room, Tom. We've got a couple more people in there. We've got, let's see. Oh, from our earlier discussion, Mags is saying that it's 11 p.m. over there in Australia right now.
Wow.
And let's see. We've got Brett Wayne in there. He says, good morning from Salamanca, New York, KC2 NXP. And he also says, we have a repeater that is 2,590 feet up, and it covers from Buffalo to Pennsylvania, 70 to 80 miles.
Wow.
So that's a pretty decent repeater.
Yeah, it's pretty decent height.
Yeah, we've actually got one around here. Now, I haven't used it in a while. I don't think it's quite as good as it used to be. Now, I'm in Connecticut, but there is a repeater up in the northwest corner of Massachusetts, and Brett may know it. It is on the highest point in Massachusetts, and that thing used to cover most of New England and eastern New York, but I think they've moved the antenna down a bit, so it's not quite as strong as it used to be. But there's a few good repeaters out there, especially in the hills around here in southern New England that can cover. But it sounds like Brett may have the prize for the biggest footprint there.
Yeah. Getting back to antennas briefly, the other antenna that I use for field work, I actually use 2 different ones for field work, is a reel antenna, REEL. Means it rolls up on a little spool, so it's easy to transport. The particular one I have, which I have reviewed, is the Sangean, and it's about 20 feet long. And what I did is I went and bought a fiberglass telescopic fishing pole. It's 13 feet long, and I can easily throw that in the back of my truck, go to a park or something away from all this RF noise, take a portable radio, such as a Texan PL 660, for instance. And what I do is I take some bungee cord and I find a place that I can mount that telescopic pole to. And then I just attach the end of the reel antenna, which that's all it is a piece of wire on a reel. And it has a connector, a standard connector for portable radios. And it even comes with a little short adapter. So if your radio doesn't have an external antenna jack, you can clip it to the built-in telescopic antenna. And that works great. That makes all the difference in the world between having a built antenna that's maybe 30 inches long and having that antenna that's 20 feet long. And of course, what I do is I slope it down so that I've got the 20 feet fully extended. I don't bring it straight down. I slope it down. And it makes all the difference in the world. And now that it's getting cool, I'll be doing that, excuse me, more because I can get outside and then I can test. And I'm going to let Rob take over so I can clear my throat. Go ahead, Rob.
That's interesting, Tom. That's one thing I haven't done a lot of myself is taking the radios out in the field. Done a little bit of that, on a family camping trip or something. But, when you're doing something like that, there isn't a lot of time. But yeah, that's always a fun thing to do, especially in your situation where you're more in a residential area. And like we were talking earlier, you might have interference issues and stuff. So you can really kind of get out there where there's none of that and receive. But that real antenna sounds interesting. The few times that I have done it, I also have a Texan PL 660, and I just have the little wire antenna that comes with it. And I've sort of done the same thing where I'll set it up on a picnic table and just drape the wire wherever I can. And even though it might kind of be on the ground almost, it seems to work better than the internal antennas on that radio. But yeah, that's interesting. We'll look forward to seeing some videos of your activities out in the field.
Yeah, I typically try to test my portable radios in the field because there's so much RF noise. Even if it's just in my backyard, that's better than in my house.
Oh, wow.
And I do have a nice park about 10 miles from me, and it's fairly big, so I can get to the center of the park, and excuse me, I'm away from power lines, which is another problem.
Interesting. We've got a park here, and again, everybody's got ideas that go through their head all the time. But we've got a nice park here a few miles away. It's up on a mountaintop. Well, mountain, probably a hilltop, but by most people's standards. But anyway, it overlooks the river valley, and that would be a good place. I've been meaning to bring my laptop and the RSP SDR Play and some wire, like you said, and see what we can get from up there and stuff. Just haven't found the time, but I need to get up there because there's an observation tower, an old fire tower on top of the hill that they're in the process of rebuilding, and I think they're almost done. So that would be a great spot to test out some radios, whether it's the SDR Play or a Texan or anything. So maybe you'll see something like that from me in the future, or maybe not. You never know. I'll look in the chat room again here, Tom, just for a minute. It looks like Brett was saying his repeater that he was talking about earlier covers all of Western New York. And then he also said it's snowing here, and he's got to go plow for the town. He said 73s, so he must have checked out.
Okay.
Yeah, we had a rainstorm come through here last night, so he was probably involved in that, not being too far away from me. and probably in a more northern and hilly area than me. So it sounds like they got some snow to deal with.
Well, unfortunately, it's still in the mid 80s here in Florida.
You can send some of that up here if you want to.
I don't know when we had, so far this year, we've had one day of high temperatures in the 70s. That's it.
Oh, wow.
Everything else, high 80s.
It's been warmer than normal here, too. In fact, the leaves on our trees were a little bit late kind of fall. I think most of them are down now because we've got these wind and rainstorms that have come through. But they were kind of hanging on there a little longer than usual for us. So the season's been a little warmer than normal, too, here.
On the Duo, doesn't it have a straight wire connection, antenna connection?
It does. I don't know how well you can see that in the camera there, but it's got two 50 ohm ports, one for each tuner that's inside. And then tuner 1 also shares this wire port here. So you can use, just a long wire or something like that. And that's something that I haven't experimented much with because of the antennas I have coming into my shack are all coax based. So I just use the 50 ohm ports most of the time. But yeah, if you have just a long wire or a high impedance antenna, you can use that.
Yeah, the beauty of those SDRs over your $20 dongle, like this one here, is, let me get me a big picture here. Like this one, where's the camera? Over there. Is that
you got to switch over to you, I think.
Yeah, you have.
Me.
Yeah, you have to remember to switch over to a different mode to receive HF, and usually even then it's not that great. With those SDR plays, it's all done automatically. You don't have to worry about it. It works perfect.
Yeah, they're nice little radios, and bang for the buck. I mean, they're really, especially even the RSP1 is a great receiver. It works well and stuff. The newer ones have some improved architecture and work a little bit better, but they are great radios for what they cost.
Do you have a 1?
Yeah, I bought a 1 myself, and actually I don't have it now. It's out on loan. But I bought that myself and played with it and made some videos. And then I got the 1A. SDR Play contacted me. They liked my videos, I guess, and they sent me a 1A for review, and then most recently they sent me the Duo for review. So I have 3 of them now. But like I said, one's out on loan to my brother-in-law, who's also a ham, and he's been kind of fooling around with it, learning the SDR stuff.
Yeah, it took me a while and the way I did it, and I watched your videos, is I couldn't get the software to work.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, I struggled, and then you did a video of basically a beginner's video of how to get it working, and I've never had any problems since after watching that video. So that mine sat there for months because I couldn't get the SDR Uno, which is a software you normally use for it, and it does the best job because it was built for it. I couldn't get it to work.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Finally, I watched your video and I go, oh, that's what I'm doing wrong. I got it working, and what a difference. It's so much better using that software.
Yeah, well, I'm glad it helped you. Yeah, because when I first got it too, I went through it, and I'm sort of familiar with software and things like that just from my job. So I kind of, that sort of stuff comes naturally to me, I guess. And when I first set it up, I thought, well, gee, there's a few steps here, and I decided to make a video on it just because I thought it might help a few people, and people have commented that it's been very helpful, even though it's sort of a beginner's thing. There's a lot of people out there that have done videos on these SDR Play themselves as well, and they've done some really great tutorials and stuff. But yeah, I've gotten a lot of good feedback on that video, even though I thought it was somewhat basic. But there's a lot of people that struggle with that because the software can be a little bit intimidating. But once you get into it and use it and get familiar with it, like you said, Tom, It works really well, although SDR console can be used with the SDR plays, and it works pretty well too. I think it's pretty close to SDR Uno in terms of what it can do and how it works and things. But for me personally, I just prefer SDR Uno just a touch better.
Yeah, I like XDR Uno from the fact that it seems to do a better job of pulling in stations, and I like the layout better than SDR console.
Have you done any comparisons between SDR console and SDR Uno to see if there's a difference in the receive?
Yes, and there is a difference, but it always leaves the question, are the setups different? Because there's so many things you can change.
Yeah, that's true. You might have one setting turned off or something, and yeah.
So I struggle to say one's better than the other because of that, because I never know if I've got the same setup on both of them when I'm comparing them side by side.
That's a good point. That's a good point. I haven't done that comparison really myself either. But again, I do mostly casual listening. I'm not really trying to pull out, the weakest signals or anything like that. But they seem pretty comparable to me. But again, maybe if I sat down and really did the comparison, I'd notice a difference. For me, it's more in the user interface and things like that, and just the things that you can control. Some people don't like SDR Uno because of all the window panes and things that you have to move around. That can kind of get cluttery for people. So that's why they prefer console, because it's all in one screen. But, whatever works, I guess.
Yeah, and see, that's what I like about Uno is you can have different screens up and you can easily resize them. So,
yeah.
I spent quite a bit of time getting mine set up to look the way I want it. The big advantage of Simon's software, SDR console, is he's constantly improving it and adding functions to it. And,
yeah, that's true.
I mean, he added that frequency manager this year, which you can turn that on, and as you're tuning, it's showing you the listing of frequency from the frequency database of what's on the frequency that you've tuned to.
Oh, that's interesting. I haven't played with that feature yet. Usually in the summer, my radio activities kind of drop down a bit because I'm doing things in the yard and with my son and things like that. So I haven't spent a whole lot of time with SDR console, the latest version of it. So I need to get back in there and check that out. That sounds interesting.
Yeah, it's like SDR Uno though. There's not much documentation, so it's trial and error.
Yeah, well, that's okay. That's part of the hobby. That's part of the fun for me. I don't know about anybody else, but.
And I've done a couple of quick videos on it just to kind of show you that it's there, but I haven't gotten into any depth. And I struggle with, after I've learned something and I go back to it maybe 3 months later, I don't remember how to do it.
Yeah, I think we all go through that.
So I find myself looking at my own videos of how to do something to remind me how to do something.
Yeah, same here. I'll watch my videos back or yours to remember how to do something or that you can do it.
Okay, let's wrap it up. How about the chat room? Let's see.
Let me take a look. Let's see. Mags is back in there. He says, sorry, not a radio question, but what speed is your net? This video seems to be pretty good. Mine is around 90 megabits per second down and 38 megabits up. Yeah.
Well, mine is terrible. Mine is 37 up, and no, 37 down and 5 up.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what mine is. I haven't tested it in a while, but it should be somewhere between 30 and 40 down, and I thought 10 or 15 up.
And the thing is, because I have so many things connected to it. Matter of fact, I checked yesterday to see if anybody was trying to use my Wi-Fi that wasn't authorized.
Oh.
And I have 25 devices on the Wi-Fi. No, 20 devices on Wi-Fi.
Oh wow. Yeah, well that's what happens now with all the modern wireless gadgets we all have.
Oh yeah, they got the Amazon Echo and 2 cell phones, and they're all sitting there pinging the Echo. I mean, pinging the Wi-Fi. Okay, yeah. Unless we have some more questions in the chat room, and I know you said you got to wrap it up by 8 o'clock. Maybe we'll close this down.
Yeah, I don't see anything else in the chat room right now, and stuff. So yeah, I guess we can run along. Like you said, yep, I got to get out of here at 8 and stuff, and get my son off to a birthday party later on. So that's what happens when you got little kids. Oh, we got one more popped in. Melissa Coleman says she would like to build a 3/4 wave J-pole. So that's interesting. I actually have made a J-pole. That's another antenna that I have, just out of copper pipe for 2 meters, and I've got it in my garage. I have a little 2-meter radio in my garage, so that when I'm out there working on my cars or my motorcycles, I can keep tabs on the local club guys, and if they want to get a hold of me, they can on that radio. And it seems to work pretty good. You can search the internet. There's plenty of plans out there, and they're easy to build. And even if you don't know how to solder water pipe, as long as you can get them to stick together, you should have a working antenna. A lot of the guys around here have made those and had success with them. How about you, Tom? What's your experience with those?
In years past, I have made a couple of J-poles. I actually made one out of PVC.
Oh.
And you go, PVC? That ain't going to work for an antenna. Well, what I did is I got the U shape or the J shape of the PVC, and then I took like 16 gauge wire and used for the actual antenna, and I just used tie wraps to tie it to the PVC. So the only soldering was to the coax cable. Okay, well there you go. That's another way to do it. That sounds interesting. And of course nowadays copper is so darn expensive. PVC is the way to go. Yeah, that's a good point. That's an excellent point, actually. But I'm embarrassed to say I can't remember his name. There is a YouTuber that I watch that is a ham, and most of his shows are about ham radio. And he makes and sells on eBay J-pole antennas. Yeah, I've seen him too, but I can't think of his channel name either. I think his channel name is his call sign, like K9 something. And he sent me one to review, and I did a review of that. And so you can go back to it's probably within the last 3 months, I did an antenna. And if you search my videos for J-pole, you'll see my review, and you'll see probably the link to his YouTube channel and his eBay website. And he sells them basically for the cost of the materials. Yeah, I think that's how I found out about him, was through your video. But yeah, that's pretty neat. So yeah. But they're go ahead. But they're like you said, they're very easy to make. They work very well. It's surprising how well they work. I made one, and I've got it in my garage buried somewhere. I made one for 6 meters. Oh, okay. It's pretty long because it's 6 meters. I'll look. Let me look back in the chat room here, Tom. There's a bunch of activity coming through now. Let's see. Melissa, she said she bought a bunch of 3/4 inch copper tubing at Lowe's. That should work for you. Now, the only thing I'll mention is with copper, it's kind of heavy. So the 3/4 inch tubing may be a little heavy, and depending on where you live and what kind of weather you get, it may tend to want to bend a bit in the wind. So the J-pole that I actually have it in the rafters of my garage so that it's not out in the weather. Now, of course, that probably reduces its range a little bit, but I'm only using that one for local communication just within town, simplex, and maybe hit a repeater or two with it. So just keep that in mind if you're making one out of copper. The design that Tom just talked about with the PVC may actually be a little more favorable
to the weather. Let's see what else we got in here. Mags wanted to know what time it is your way. So I'll answer that. We're both on the east coast of the U.S., so we're in the same time zone. And right now it is 7:51 a.m. We should have done that 10 minutes ago. We could have done 7:41, which is my channel. And that's actually one of the reasons my channel is named that, because I have this habit of looking at the clock at 7:41. It's a big joke within my family.
Oh.
Let's see. Somebody else asked, how does the SDR2 compare to the original in RFI? I don't have a whole lot of problems with RFI with mine, either one. Now, I use a pretty decent USB cable. Some people have said that if they use the cheaper USB cables, they get some RFI. But I'm also running a pretty decent antenna on mine, through a piece of coax out in the yard. And the problem I have more with them is signal overload. The signal gets a little too strong, and I'll get the broadcast stations will kind of bleed over on other frequencies, so to speak. Now that's probably more the difference between the original and the new ones, where the new ones have better filtering for that and can kind of handle that signal overload a little better. But as far as RFI goes, I don't have any issue with either. What's your experience with RFI, Tom? Do you have problems?
I don't have any problems at all. Antenna wise, I use shielded coax cable, bring an outside antenna in. But as far as the USB cable, I'm using a $1 special USB cable with practically no shielding, and I have no problems. No problem. And I've got the RSP1.
Okay, yeah, and that's the experience I had with the RSP1 as well. It seemed okay, but the stuff I've read online, some people have trouble with them. They put them in shielded boxes and use shielded cables and things like that. So it may depend on your environment.
And my box is about 3 feet from the computer I'm using right now, and it's the computer that I use to use Uno to listen to it, and I have no problems whatsoever.
Yeah, same here. So pretty much the same setup. Let's see. Melissa says she's going to try and hang the J-pole she was talking about from her tower. Not sure if it will stand on its own. Well, again, I'm not sure what you mean by hang it from the tower, but if you mount it, from the base, it should stay okay. Again, it may bend over time because the copper is kind of soft and a little bit heavy. If you just hang it, I'm not sure how that would work unless you can kind of hang it on both ends, and then it may be okay. Let's see. Melissa says, I'll check that channel. Thanks. Mags is laughing at us. Let's see. Scott Collier says, thanks for the comprehensive take on the SDR RF tuner performance. You're welcome. Let's see. Ranham335 says he came in late. He said, I heard I was from Connecticut. He uses Echolink to a repeater up there to make a contact. I believe the club name was something like Ransom. It's actually, I think what you're talking about is Rayson. That is the Radio Amateur Society of Norwich, Connecticut, which is in the southeastern part of the state. I'm in the northeastern part of the state. I would say their repeater is about 30 miles due south of me, and I have used that repeater as my father-in-law, who's also a ham, lives in that area, and we use that repeater to communicate when he's there. So I'm familiar with that club to some degree. And we're all caught up in the chat there now, Tom.
All right. So I think it's a good time to wrap it up. I know you said you have some place to go at 8 o'clock, so we're just going to just make that schedule for you.
Okay, that's great. I appreciate you inviting me in here, Tom. This was a lot of fun. I hope everybody watching enjoyed our little chat here, and we'll have to do this again now that it seems like we've got most of the technical issues worked out.
Yeah, as far as on my end, this has worked out perfect. As far as I can tell, the audio and video was good, and we had very good discussions. We were very knowledgeable of this subject, which is what I was hoping that you would come forward with your knowledge and be able to share it too. And hopefully we can try to work out a mutual schedule, maybe at least be able to schedule several hours before so people will know something is coming when we do some more of these shows.
Yeah, that sounds like a great idea. We'll have to try and do that, plan a day or two ahead or something like that, and then, just try and do it. Because I enjoy talking with you, Tom. I've learned a lot from your videos as well. You're very knowledgeable here too. So it's always good to kind of talk with somebody who's like-minded, and we can learn, a little bit. And it's fun to have everybody in the chat room kind of following along with us.
All right. We shall wrap it up then. And again, I appreciate Rob taking the time to come in to hang out with me. And thanks to everybody that stopped by. Again, this wasn't a scheduled program, so I didn't expect a lot of live viewers, but hopefully when we release this video, there'll be a lot of people that watch it and enjoy it. If you enjoy it, please give us a thumbs up. And thanks for watching.
Yep. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you later.
Bye-bye.